Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm just chilling in the prison here.
Tell me your updates.
Okay, did you hear my show from yesterday with Rudy Davis?
I did. I'm not sure how many other people did. That's why I was going to write it up, but I was hoping to get a quote from you. This is better.
Well, so the thing I forgot to I just talked to Andrea Parker, and the thing I forgot to bring up in that show yesterday was the fact that Larry Wooten references to the fact that the Bureau of Land Management likely violated its own policies and procedures.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Do you do you have specific stuff we can look for?
Well, no, we can't because we can't get Wooten into a doggone deposition yet.
Okay, so it's nothing else that we can look for to be prepared for his testimony. This is stuff that's going to come out in his testimony.
Exactly. Now, what happens, according to my attorney, is when they violate their own policies and procedures, they lose their authority.
Really?
So, yes, they lose their authority. They no longer have law enforcement authority. They're no longer operating under the federal authority. They're operating as common civilians or criminals even, in which we know that they violated statutes, and which is even worse. When they began to kill the cattle and cut up the waters, they became criminals. So obviously they were violating statutes, policies, and procedures at that point, and should have been taken into custody by the sheriff.
Yeah.
So everything after the fact that they started killing cattle and cutting up, deeded waters, deeded by the state of Nevada, that they had lost their authority at that point. They became criminals. It would be no different than a law enforcement officer robbing a bank while he's wearing his uniform. He becomes a criminal. He loses his authority. He can't go and rob a bank and then turn around and walk out and arrest somebody for drunk driving. He's already become a criminal.
Oh.
So he's lost his authority.
And he's lost his authority on a permanent basis.
He's lost it until he has rectified what he has done. There has to be, he's broken the law. He's broken their own policies and procedures. If you break the policies and procedures, what happens to you in any other corporation? Well, you're brought into the president's office, you're reprimanded or you're fired. Things have to happen for you to make it right when you violate policies and procedures of a corporation. You can't just go and violate all the policies and procedures of your employers and then just walk out the door and go, well, nothing happened. Tomorrow I'm going back to work. There has to be a procedure.
Right.
You can't just go, what are policies and procedures that say the NSA? Well, you can't freaking copy data onto a thumb drive from your office computer. Okay? You have to answer for that. So when the BLM did what they did, they lost their authority, and they should have had to answer for that. And they have no authority until they have paid their recompense to what they had done. So by them even being out there on the 12th, after they had violated the law, violated state of Nevada law by cutting up his waters and killing his private property, the cattle, they no longer have law enforcement authority.
Okay, address, now I totally agree with you, but there are people that are saying that we're not subject to the state laws, only the federal laws. Address that.
No, they were subject to the state laws in the fact that in the threat assessments, they actually addressed the fact that they could be arrested by local authorities. They actually have an entire paragraph in there, maybe even longer than half a page in one of their threat assessments. I could read it, see if I could get it, where they addressed the fact that they could be arrested by local law enforcement and what the procedures were going to be to get out of jail, like out of a county jail, if any of them were arrested. And that was to call the U.S. Marshal Service. So let me ask you this. So if they are not under state law, then they can go and do anything they want, right?
Well, that's the way I see it.
They can violate any state law that there is.
That's the way I see it. That's why I had a problem with the statement.
Yeah, it's ridiculous on its face. So state law says you can't rape people. That's not a federal law. There's no statutes in federal law for rape. Rape is always a state law. So if the Bureau of Land Management doesn't have to abide by state law, that means they can rape anybody they want and they can't get in trouble. It's ridiculous.
Well, you're absolutely right.
It's totally ridiculous. Anybody who says that has no clue what they're talking about.
Well, there's so many federal laws at this point. I mean, there's thousands? You know, we started out with 3 and now we have so many you can't keep up with them all, that I honestly don't know what's in federal law and what isn't anymore.
Well, I have all the federal laws here, and rape is not if you rape somebody, that's not violating federal law unless you rape and kidnap and take them over state lines. But if you just rape somebody here locally, that's not a federal law. That's only state law.
Oh.
So that means if the feds don't have to abide by state laws, that means they can go around Las Vegas and rape anybody they want, and there's no penalty for that. It's ridiculous. And there's so many more examples I could use.
Is there anything in the federal law that requires them to abide by state law?
Boy, that's something an attorney would have to answer.
Okay, I didn't know if you'd run across anything like that, because that would just double down on this whole point that you're making.
Well, you know, they like to run roughshod over state law, but they're supposed to abide by it. But see, they've gone so far outside of their authority that they run over the county sheriffs now and do whatever the hell they want. See, when this thing happened in Riverside, California, where this BLM agent shot this woman, the sheriff should have arrested that guy.
Right.
Immediately on the spot arrested him for shooting one of his constituents, a civilian. But he didn't, because these sheriffs are not doing their jobs.
Right.
You can't just shoot one unarmed woman that's riding in a closed area. You can't shoot people in the head for running around in a four-wheeler committing a misdemeanor.
Right.
The sheriff, if he would have done his job, he should have arrested that guy immediately and taken him to the county jail. But these guys it's so much deeper than this, as you know. They're getting so much money from the feds, they won't enforce state law on federal agents. They've become the slaves to the feds because they get so many grants from them.
Yeah.
So it's just sickening. They just allow it to occur. They become subservient to federal agents, BLM, Forest Service, FBI, and they just kowtow to them whenever they come into town and just slaughter their civilians. The local law enforcement is like, well, okay, well, there'll be an investigation. Total joke.
Well, the other part of that problem is the fact that they're in California and they are a country unto themselves down there.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. You ain't a kidding there.
I know it, but Nevada seems to be trying to do the same thing in your case.
Yeah. But anyway, so that kind of gives you a little bit more about what's going on about policies and procedures and the BLM losing their authority. They had lost their authority at the Bundy Ranch.
A lot of people have worried about Wooten's safety. Are you worried about his safety?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had some people tell me not to worry, but I'm scared to death for the man.
We feel that his testimony will completely tear the Bureau of Land Management down. It'll be the last straw that breaks the camel's back for the Bureau of Land Management. And I think that everybody knows it that's in any type of federal capacity. They do not want him deposed. They do not want him on the stand. They do not want him to say another damn word. They don't even want his second memo to be heard by, seen, or read by anybody. It's so controversial.
Oh, I understand that.
So we know that deposing Larry Wooten will absolutely annihilate the Bureau of Land Management and the Department of Interior, and it will also absolutely destroy the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nevada.
And you don't believe there's a chance of getting him on the stand unless it's through a civil case? Is that what I heard?
We don't think that she's going to allow it. We think she's going to ignore it. It's been 2 weeks now today, and she's ignored it so far. If she's smart, she's going to protect the prosecutors as much as she possibly can. She's going to throw them to the wolves when she releases me, no matter what. But by allowing us to depose Larry Wooten, she literally guts them with a frickin' machete right through the bowels and then throws them to the wolves.
So you're pretty sure she's going to release you next month?
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, how come she has not released you yet?
She is trying. We think that this, okay, like I explained in that interview, this is so monumental. Remember now, Parker and Drexler went through 2 trials, and it took a misdemeanor on the eve of the 3rd trial. And the entire time, the prosecution had in its possession evidence of sniper teams surrounding the Bundy Ranch.
Right.
So they threatened them with a 3rd trial. They threatened them with a 3rd trial the whole time while they hold exculpatory Brady material in their office. Navarro has to deal with that. How does she dare sentence Parker and Drexler? Now, Santilli did the same thing. He took a deal on the eve of his trial because he in all rationale, he thought all the evidence had been turned over.
Sure.
Made an educated decision. I'm going to take a trial. I've seen the last 2 trials. They were total kangaroo courts. And to protect myself, I'm going to take a felony with time served. And then a few weeks later, all of this exculpatory Brady material comes out. She has to deal with that. Same with McGuire. She also has to deal with the fact that the Lamas took a deal, but the fact is that the indictment is now a fraud. It's an invalid indictment. So she has to deal with the fact that the indictment is a fraud. So how does she handle the Lamas, Santilli, McGuire, Drexler, Parker?
And you.
Me and Burleson. She's allowed Burleson to come back into her court.
Yeah, that was very shocking.
It's huge. So the writing's on the wall. She's going to handle this all here next month, most likely.
And that's on the 12th?
Right? 19th.
The 19th, I'm sorry.
Yep. So the writing's on the wall. She has had to probably deal with this over the last 4, 5, 6 months on how she's going to handle these plea bargains. Those are the most confusing for her. These guys sign plea bargains. When you sign a plea bargain, you sign away all your rights. But how do they uphold a plea bargain when the government put these guys through trials and withheld tons of exculpatory information from them? She's in a real pickle here.
Yes, she is, and it's going to be very interesting. I think you're right. I think the only way to keep Wooten from being on the stand is to release you all. There would be no reason to put him on the stand at that point, in her mind.
And then to punt it down the road to the civil courts, and it's out of her jurisdiction, out of her hands.
Exactly.
And she just lets the civil courts deal with it. And likely, when we start to depose people concerning the civil trials, they're going to settle. They're going to settle with everybody. Because we're going to want to depose Ahmed, we're going to want to depose Wooten, we're going to want to depose Love, we're going to want to depose Salvatore Loro, Kent Kleeman, everybody that was involved in this thing. Harry Reid's son. The list is as long as your arm. Well, they're not going to allow that. They're not going to allow that, Sherry. As soon as we start subpoenaing people, it's going to be settlements.
Oh, yeah. Big ones.
They do not want this thing out, the truth out. So that's how they get by not allowing us to get Wooten into a courtroom under oath. They've got this figured out. The stupidest thing she could ever do is to sentence me. She would be up for impeachment at that point.
You think?
Well, Harry's an impeachment. Absolutely. Because the indictment is a fraud.
Right.
She now knows that it's a fraud. So if she continues with this charade and just sentences me, she's become complicit in the conspiracy. She knows it's a fraud. That's why she dismissed Cliven's case. She even says in the dismissal that the presence of Sniper was debated contentiously in the first two trials.
Well, that's why it surprised me she's waited this long to release you.
I think that she's trying to figure out how to get out from underneath this thing all on one fell swoop.
Well, she's got a lot of people helping her figure that out. They should have done that by now.
Well, we've put enough pressure now.
I know, you've been amazing, Todd. And, you know, I'm really impressed with your attitude, because I don't know anybody else who can keep smiling after everything you've been through, but I've never seen you without a smile on your face.
Hey, if you don't smile, you cry, so I just keep smiling.
Well, I am planning on being in the courtroom with you.
Okay, great. Well, keep your powder dry, because we don't know if it'll be the 19th or if she'll do it before that, or if they're going to postpone again, or we don't know what's going to happen. But right now, we're on for the 19th. You know, let everybody know. I think I've let everybody know that I'm not just fighting for me. I'm fighting for Lavoy and Dr. Red and his family and the Hammonds. You know, this is the Hages, Cortlander, all the people that have been tormented and tortured by the federal government, the BLM, and the Forest Service. This is bigger than me, because the fight that I'm putting on is so much bigger. It can take
1 minute remaining.
It can take down all these entities that have destroyed so many people.
Yeah, it's gotten so out of hand, and so many people have been hurt, and you're leading that charge, and we can't thank you enough.
Well, that's the key. It's not just for me. It's for everybody who's been put through hell by these agencies. So let everybody know that, okay?
I certainly will.